These are some of my crafted swords that I've made of yardsticks. Uh, this one is probably my personal favorite. This is the medieval style. It's got a nice metal pummel there. Um, got some ninjato style. This one's got some serrations on it. Yes, very good for cutting cardboard. Um, and I've got an older katana style that I made a long time ago. You can see the handle's starting to deteriorate. But I've developed a process to make these swords out of a pretty antiquated materials, the yardstick. Not really used too often anymore in an educational setting. And I've had plenty of requests to make a video about how to do it. So today I've got a new order on my Etsy for a katana style sword. I'll be walking you through step by step just how to make one of these bad boys. Here we go. So in the materials department, you're going to want to have a yardstick. One of them is necessary, just one. You don't need two. Hot glue gun is going to be helpful. Occasionally I'll use epoxy, especially for the pummel on this guy right here. This one's been crafted with a combination of epoxy and hot glue on various parts, but it's very sturdy because of the epoxy, especially this pummel right here. Ugh, can't get it out. Yeah, which is imperative if you want to have a quality sword. I don't know, be it for LARPing or pointing at things in the classroom, chopping boxes, what have you, any one of those purposes. All right, and you want to, first things first, mark the end of where this katana is going to be. The average length of katana is a little around 39 inches to a little bit longer, if we're talking about American units here. So I'll just pencil where I think about at 39 inches here and give myself kind of a nice katana curve shape. I think right there is a good kind of shape, what I want that end to look like. Just like that. You can do kind of a straight up tanto style where it's just a sharp straight line at like a 45-degree angle, but to be true to the kind of a Japanese style of a katana blade, it really does look a little bit more like that. Next step here is to just cut that off using a finishing saw. And I'd like to kind of get that first angle, just kind of get it to bite like that. There we go. And I'll probably cut all the way through with that angle. I won't bend the saw into like a weird curve or anything. All right, pretty good start. From there, give it maybe another cut kind of right about there. There we go. Pretty good. You can finish rounding it over with a box cutter, or a little bit of sandpaper. You can see got some sandpaper here. And I didn't really finish talking about all the necessary materials. You can see I've got sandpaper, box cutter, pencil, hot glue. This is one of the big important ones. Now, I've experimented with a few types of handle material, and this is by far one of the best things. It's called rubber splicing tape. You fashion it together at the end around the handle, and it essentially forms together to make one solid piece of rubber. It's kind of cool. And I've been interested in maybe exploring some tennis racket grip kind of tape. But for now, I just keep using this because it feels great on the hand. It is not regular electrical tape. That would be messy to hold and wield. But this stuff is solid for sure. And then, of course, you got your handle guard material. This is just a jar lid. I've used all kinds of handle guards, as you can see from just a few of my examples here. This is kind of what the jar lid looks like in action. And this one is like a squarish handle guard for a Ninjato style sword. And that's a lid from kind of a tin of mints. So it's just kind of about experimenting with found objects, combining things, getting creative. It's kind of a fun process. It's not supposed to be serious. It's supposed to be fun. So now I've got the hot glue gun warming up. I'm going to finish smoothing out that katana shape end here. It's, as you can see, very kind of angular. You can kind of whittle it down and smooth it over with the box cutter blade. And you can do a combination of that, and as I said before, run some sandpaper over it. I think this is about 60 or 80 grit. We got 60. Now, because this one's for a customer, I'm going to try to maintain a pretty sharp point on there, and if they want to round it over or something on their own, they can do that. If I was making it for a local customer like a student, I would probably give it a bit more round of a tip, because I know it'd be used by a kid. But since this was purchased by somebody in another state, I'm assuming it's probably, I don't know what they're going to be doing with it, but I wanted to have the option to have it be nice and pokey and sharp on the end. Because it's a sword, right? It's a sword, that's the whole idea. Now, occasionally, I have in the past run this bad boy through a table saw and put a 45 angle on one edge there, which I can show you on this guy. This gets a lot of use actually, as you can see, but if you can see the angle right there has been 45 on actually either side of this. It's like a double edge. But I don't really do that standard, partly because I don't really have a functioning table saw right now. So if somebody had requested to do that, I would be willing to accommodate. But for now, I'm just going to give them flat edge. I mean, nobody's really going into battle with this thing, right? So I'm smoothing it over. It feels very good right here on the end. It's getting really nice and almost just right. But I want to smooth out the transition a little bit right here. That transition, I think, is just almost smooth enough, but I want to get it just right. And I did seem to kind of lose maybe a little tiny chunk off the end right there when I cut it, but I'm not worried about that. All right, smoothing out the transition there. Looks pretty nice. And I think the shape is looking pretty katana-esque, almost. All right, so I got the end fashioned down to the shape that I want it. Now, more or less, I might hone it in a little bit later in the process. But for now, I want to move on to the next step, which is figuring out the handle. Where's the handle going to go to, and how are we going to apply the guard, etc. So let's see here. So just based on my own personal experience, I like to grip it with the handle at about 9.5 inches is where the guard starts. That gives me plenty of length to operate it one-handed, or to hold it two-handed, which if it's a katana, you want the option to have two hands on it, and still have just enough extra handle at the bottom to not feel like you have too little space. And you still have plenty of blade, since of course this is a yardstick, meter stick, and you're limited on length there. So I'm thinking About 9.5 down will be the rubber handle, and just that little space up between 9.5 and 10 inches is going to be where we apply the handle guard. So that's the next step. Okay, trying to find out if that little dress guard logo is right smack dab in the middle of that container lid, and the lid is about 2 and almost 3/4 inches across in the diameter, the widest part. That means 1 3/8 inches should be in the middle of the logo, and that is right where it is. So I'm going to say yes. So that's good. Now I could stand up my sword on the end and use it as like a little template of where I want to kind of outline. I'm going to be punching a hole in that. So I want it to fit as tight as I can on there. I'm still going to fasten it with hot glue and everything, but I happen to have this little block laying around, so I'll just use this block instead. It's a little easier to manage. Kind of put it right in the middle, roughly, on that logo. And I'm going to be outlining it with kind of like a skinny Sharpie, more or less. It's not perfect. Keep adjusting it a little bit here and there. Eyeball it really as close as you can get it. That looks pretty good. So that's pretty good what I'm going for. Now I'm going to start kind of puncturing this thing and cutting it apart using one of these guys. I've done this with like a screwdriver before. It's better to be a little more precise if possible. So I'm going to kind of try to stab into it. Well, there's a couple ways to do it. It can be helpful to get a horizontal kind of puncture, like going right here, but you don't want to go too far. Going right here, and then in the center, yeah, you can kind of cut towards. You can kind of see what I'm going for there. I got a couple of slices. Cut it towards the edge there. And meet, there we go, on either side. There. All right, so I got kind of like, now from there I can carefully, maybe with pliers or something, kind of fold it in. I mean, I could score it or something like right here, but it's not really necessary. So let me get some pliers, see what I can do here. All right, I got some pliers here. So I can first just kind of poke them in, get this thing to bend a little bit. Oh, it's not bad. Not too bad at all right there. Kind of, if I can expand the middle just like that without getting too crazy. Kind of grab it, fold it in. Yeah, it's looking pretty good. On this side a little bit. And then in a moment you can kind of dry fit. I mean, not even dry fit, just actually fit the blade through here. Kind of dial in where you want it to go on that handle. Pretty good. So just something like that. Oop. I can now slide the handle into there, maybe from the top. If it's kind of scratching it the whole way down, I wouldn't want to keep going, but I think this is kind of just the right size, as you can kind of see here. That's what we're going for, just a nice fit, get where you want it, as I described earlier, right around the 9.5 inch
mark. So right around there. Now I can look at my overall length here. Look at the product. Looking pretty solid. Got a little sword going here. Not bad. I'll get some hot glue ready. Alright. I'm just really trying to dial it in and hold it in place with one finger right on that mark where I want it to be. And from there, I can apply a gentle bead of hot glue going across one side of this handle here. Hold it right in place. Let that dry. I can turn it in my hand here and make sure. Honestly, while it's wet, it's good to get some on the other side. Then you can, as it's drying, at least this first pass, you can really kind of dial it in, trying to make sure it's very level, or perpendicular rather, I guess. The entire sword handle. Looking at it carefully. Trying to make sure it's like right about a 90-degree angle there. Thinking that's pretty good. And so I can let it dry. That's got more of a fat bead on that side. Kind of bring some of that around. Add a little bit over here to even it out. On the other side. Now, I'm not worried about overdoing the hot glue on this side because this is going to be covered up with the handle material largely. So I want to give it plenty of adhesion. Sorry, I'm off the screen here. I want to give it plenty of adhesion. So I'll be, using the hot glue very liberally. Very, not too excessive, but plenty. Not holding back at all. Plenty of hot glue. All right, that's probably got plenty at least on this side. So I can kind of turn it as it's setting up, make sure it's not flowing in any direction. I can hold it just up and down. And if there's any real, I don't want to get my hand in there too early because I don't want to make it look too messy. But the great thing about hot glue is on these smooth surfaces, you can, when you're done, you can really just rub it off. Oh, but you don't want to knock it out of level there. Kind of moved it a little bit. So I'm holding it where I want it to be. And you want to just let it dry before you get too much further. So I'm gonna mess with it a little bit off camera, let it dry. All right, so we've let it dry. I applied even some more hot glue while it was drying. It looks pretty globby, but that's not a problem. Like I said, I'm gonna be putting handle material right up over the top of some of that. And I really just want it to be secure down here. That's where you're going to be holding it. Boom, just like that. Ta-da! And it's starting to feel very sword-like. It does feel great in the hand already. So that's the fun thing about crafting these swords is swords are awesome. So here we go. From next step, before I apply the handle material, and that is a bit of a process, which you'll want to stay tuned for. I'm going to apply a little bit of adhesion across the top here. We don't want just a raw cut can look, and it doesn't look too terribly much better with a little bit of hot glue on there, but at least it keeps it from kind of having janky metal sticking out. So I'm just going to be carefully applying a little more hot glue around the top half of this handle guard is the technical term, I believe. I'm not a big sword expert, but I know a thing or two, I guess. Boom. There we go. A little bit right there. Boom. Nice. A little bit right there. You can kind of apply it high Let it kind of run down into where you need it to be. It's kind of using gravity there. Yeah, I might add a little bit more on this side. But again, applying it up high, letting it run down where it needs to be. Same with this side. A little bit more. Up high, letting it run down. Let's see. And if it doesn't have enough material to really flow where you want it to go, you can add some more. This side's flowing downward nicely. It's not perfectly square everywhere, but it's not going to be. I mean, we're not machines here. We're doing an arts and crafts project. There we go. I can kind of even out that spot. Alright, so that's pretty good. I'm gonna let that set up. That does seem a little lumpy right there. I could add maybe a little bit to fill that out right there. We'll see, but I don't want to make it any worse, so we'll see how that looks. Better, worse, who's to say? Looks pretty good though. Could maybe add a little bit on this corner as well. Alright, from there I'll probably let it set up, and we'll then apply the handle material. While it's setting up, I can even just appreciate now how sword-like it's looking. Total sword coming into existence. That's the fun part.
Alright, so it's time to apply some of the handle material. Just unwrap this pack of rubber splicing tape here. The pink is the liner between the roll of black rubber tape, because if you separate it from the liner and then the black touches another piece of the black rubber, it slowly bonds together, forming a singular piece of rubber. So that's why there's a liner between it, so it wouldn't just be a solid hockey puck of rubber. Now to do this, it smells good. It smells like new rubber. What I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be kind of adding some mass to the sides here, just so it's not so narrow, and so that when we're building it up by wrapping this around, it doesn't build up in a uniform way in every direction, because then when it feels finally wide enough in the hand, it's getting too wide in this direction. So you want to add some mass. I've done this several ways. I've done it by wrapping tons of rubber bands around, but that you get into the same kind of a problem with the mass being too uniform. So I'm going to add a couple of strips of tape going this way, but I'm going to have to kind of glue them on, because there's no stickiness to this tape. It just sticks to itself. It doesn't have any type of a glue or anything on it. So I'm thinking I could either hot glue this down or hold it on there with some rubber bands, which is also sometimes part of my process, to just layer tons and tons of rubber bands around here. But I think we can avoid that. We can just do the the splicing tape without the liner here on. Build up a couple of rows of this on either side. I'm going to do that now. So I'm kind of just laying out where I think it's going to go. After just kind of dry fitting it, I think about three layers of this on either side of the handle is going to do it. It'll give me some sufficient mass on the sides, and just kind of measuring this to be roughly equal length. Cut the next one. Maybe cut one more. I got two more to cut. Let's see here. Just kind of measure this out. Hands are a little shaky because I was just doing some deadlifts. Let's see here. All right. Back day. All right. I got my pieces here now. I just can peel the liners off, stick them all together, and then I only have to just glue it on one time. That would be ideal. I don't have to glue layer after layer. I'll just stick them all together and then glue it on. Okay, got my pieces here. Got the liners removed. I'm thinking I'll do kind of one closer to the edge, one closer to the other edge, and one smack dab in the middle. As far as, and of course, this doesn't have to be perfect. This is going to be under a wrapped handle, but I think that, you know, if we can maximize it or just make it as good as we possibly can, that's what we're shooting for here. Okay, yeah. So as soon as I set it on there, it wants to stick. I could probably peel it back up. Um, but it really wants to bond with itself. That's just the nature of this stuff. It's pretty cool. So yeah, just hopefully you can line it up right where you want it to go, smack it on there, and because you don't want to try to back it off and reverse the process. It's not easy to do. Okay, so I got this side built up. I'm going to add some glue on there, lock it into place. Maybe just like a little bit of glue. It does, again, this is going to be wrapped with a full handle material. So that is not the only thing holding it down. But I think that's going to give me a nice little boost in the mass on the sides there. So that when I start wrapping it up, it'll be the right feel. It's very important that you get the right feel in the hand with the sword. That's what we're going for. All right, I got the liners removed on the tape for the other side. I cannot stress this enough. You want this rubber splicing tape. There is a linerless version of this stuff that probably doesn't bond to itself quite so good, but I've used it in the past and it works. You do not want to get electrical tape. This is not an electrical tape kind of a job. That's going to leave sticky black stuff on your hand when you use the sword, when you're playing with it, swinging it around. If you're just doing it for show, then maybe, yeah, if it's like a display sword only. But I initially built these because I point to stuff with them in class. I swing them around. I chop boxes in half with them. It's a lot of fun. It's an active toy, in my opinion. That one right there kind of got away from me there, but that's okay. Better than trying to peel it off and redo it. Let's just commit to where it's at now. Layer it up just like that. Not bad. All right, and so now got these layers going. I can glue them down. And even just a little bit of hot glue under there is going to give me some mass as well. So that's good. I could have been even more generous with that hot glue if I wanted to really build it up a little more. And then I've kind of gone long over here. I can just trim that down. Easy peasy. Oop. All right, that's looking good. Let it kind of set up before I do too much playing with it. But so far, overall, it feels great in the hand. The length is ideal. This is starting to be a real nice katana. There it is. Coming together nicely. I hope the Etsy customer, is pleased. Okay, so the final step in the process now is to apply the rest of the tape around the handle. I mean, I can drop it all the way to the ground there, but you want to be very, very intentional how you do this. I start right there, just up over the lip of that hot glue, and we'll wrap it very carefully and intentionally and start building it up nicely. Whether you go around the entire handle once or twice, occasionally even 3 times, just depends on the feel of the blade, or feel of the sword in your hand when you get it going. Once it's wrapped the first time, I'll give it a good feel and I'll decide, does it feel the right thickness? And if you wrap it closer, the space between each part of it, I'm trying to keep it as consistent as I can, just for the sake of craftsmanship. But if you wrap that closer together, the handle will have more mass. If you have that a bigger space all the way down, it'll be a little bit more lightweight and skinny of the handle. So that's one way to kind of hone it in or dial it in. And as you're going, you got to remove the liner on this tape, um, but you don't want to get it too much. Yeah, sometimes if you just let it hang free there, that's maybe the best way to do it. Um, there we go. Get it on camera there. And just very intentionally, slowly doing it well. It's not going to be perfect, not a robot, but this is a handcrafted kind of a thing, so I think that's why people appreciate it. Um, and yeah, these ones go for $35 on my Etsy page. Sold a few of them, but what I do love making is the medieval style one that takes a lot longer to make. And next time someone buys one of those, I'll go ahead and make a process video on that. So that would be, if that's something you're interested in seeing, go ahead and find my Etsy page and buy a medieval sword so I can make one. I've experimented with all kinds of handle guards and different kinds of tapes. Like I said earlier in the video, I'd be very interested in a tennis racket wrap kind of a tape because I like how that feels in the hand. But this rubber is very grippy, and the cool thing is when you use it a lot, which I do, I use mine all the time in class and point to things. I tap on the desks to, try to get kids to be quiet. I used to take a break from class and chop a box in half if kids would bring in like a cereal box or something. That was pretty awesome. But kids got a little too riled up, so I stopped doing that. They get a little way too excited from that. But anyways, so once I have it here, I can just break it off. That gives it a nice, um, not a bad kind of a. All right, so I have one coat of this on the handle. As you can see, I now will give it a feel. And it does feel narrow a little bit. Right off the bat, I can tell it feels a little bit narrow compared to this buildup of. Now, this one looks a little more sloppy because it's got a lot of rubber bands on under there, but you can see it's a little bit more massive, and this one feels good in the hand. Got the medieval sword. That one feels very good in the hand, but it's significantly more massive. If I'm comparing the size here, this is a one-handed sword, though. And yeah, that's quite a bit beefier. Um, so what I think I'll do is another coat, another three strips of tape on the sides, and then one more wrap around, and I think that'll probably do it. So I decided to beef up the handle a little bit with only one more piece of tape, but with a generous amount of hot glue. Already I can feel that it's feeling a lot wider. Feels pretty nice in the grip. So at this point, it probably just needs one more pass around with with the tape. And of course, I'm trying to conserve materials as well because each roll of this splicing tape is around $8-9. So I don't want to use up too much of it. But you can expect to use about a whole roll every time you make one of these swords. So sword is almost done. Going to put the last wrap on the grip. All right, there it is. I give it one final wrap. The thickness of the handle is perfect. It feels fantastic in the hand. It's exactly where I want it to be. Um, does it look as perfectly clean as the first wrap? No, it's a little more lumpy, but it's going to feel way better when you're using it, when you're holding it. And overall, the finished product is pretty good, pretty decent. pretty solid. You could always, put a little tape over that little bottom part if you want. Um, I feel like it's not necessary. And voila, there she is.